Welcome, I'm Paul, this platypus here is Dave. Today I have 13 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. There's quite a few very interesting ones this time, very novel, unique. My favorite ones, let's just say stone, snow, and something stranger. Case file number 3338, written by Seven Finger Phil, chased by chance. When I was 16, I was at the local mall hanging out. A man came up to me who was completely bald except the top center of his hair. He had a long ponytail coming down. On top of that, he had very distinct looking facial features. He began to ask me if I would read some book he was trying to hand out to people. I took a look at the book and realized it was some sort of cult. I told him I would, but he had to hold on for a minute while I went and got a book that I wanted him to read. I went and got a Bible out of my car and proceeded to walk back into the mall. I found the man and asked him for one of his books, then handed him the small Bible. He refused to take it. I told him I would gladly read his book. I would just like it if he read the one I was giving him. He absolutely refused. I told him I would take his book anyway, and I did. As I was leaving, he began to follow me through the mall. I was 16, and this grown man was following me. I felt very uneasy. I went and found a security guard and told him what was going on, and he confronted the man. I got to my car and left. A few months later, I was at a music festival in my town, and I saw the same man. He was handing out the books and talking to teenagers. He saw me and ran up, asked me how I was doing and if I had read the book yet. I told him I had read some of it, which was the truth. I asked him if he had picked up a Bible yet, and he got pretty stern, saying no. He followed me around a bit, and I eventually lost him. A few months after that, I was in Cleveland, which is around 4 hours from my hometown. I was walking around with some friends after a concert. I see the same guy running up to me, all excited to see me. We talk for a bit, and he eventually leaves. At this point, I am a tad weirded out, but figure it's only 4 hours from my hometown. It's a concert, he is going to places he knows teenagers will be. This is not that weird, although the odds aren't very likely, even with that in mind. A year or so later, I was down in South Carolina. A few friends of mine had taken spring break from school to go pick up a buddy of ours who was getting out of boot camp. We spent a day in Savannah, Georgia, all day. I was hanging out with my friends and we were having a blast. At some point, early in the evening, I decided to run to the car real quick, which was about a 10-minute walk from where we currently were. As I was walking, I turned a corner into the parking alley where the car was, and the same fucking man was standing there. I got pretty startled. I didn't even believe what my brain was telling me. He walked up to me, all excited again, and started talking. I booked my fat butt in the other direction. Over the next few years, I saw this man in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky, Chicago, Illinois, Dayton and Columbus, Ohio, and Evansville in Indiana. Each encounter got increasingly weird and confrontational, and just impossible. Now, the final straw. I was around 20 at this point, and worked for a company that had me going to DC usually once a month. I had a day off up there and was checking out the sights. As I was walking through the grass, enjoying the sights, someone started hollering, "Hey buddy! Hey man, slow down!" I turned around, and it's this man. I freak out. I'm no longer a 16-year-old kid who is scared of you at the mall. I look at him, and I say something along the lines of how this has to stop, and how the hell do you keep finding me? He gives me the speech I had heard from him already, about how it's fate and it's meant to be. I told him he had to stop, and he was never allowed to talk to me ever. I told him that if I ever saw him anywhere on this earth again, I was going to take legal action to make him stop. I told him that cops would probably think I'm crazy, so if nothing legally could be done, I would find a way to make him stop. It didn't matter if I went to jail or if I had to end him. This was going to stop. I was furious, scared, and all around just not having this crap anymore. He walked away, and I never saw him again, but I still ask myself all the time how he found me almost a dozen times. Yeah, so there are coincidences, and then there's glitches, and this is clearly a glitch. A glitch in the way where Well, okay, a glitch I would say is something that happens because of the universe, or maybe something above it. So it could even be spiritual in a certain sense, but if it is willed by someone inside the universe, I guess you could still say it's a glitch because it's not normal. It's just abnormal. Is this person able to actually tap into the Matrix? Does he have a secret? Is his cult real? I don't know about that. I don't even know what the cult is. You didn't explain that. But, I mean, it makes you think a bit, you know? If he has the power to know where someone is, maybe it's subconscious on his part. I mean, it didn't seem like he actively was trying to find you, but he certainly did. 12 times, or I don't know how many, but that's crazy. Even going by the logic you postulated. Well, yeah, okay, he's just going to places that teenagers would be. Makes sense, but that many times? No way. There's just no way. Case file number 3339, written by Technical Stick 2346, The Mouse Portal. The second year I lived in my house, we had a mouse problem. I would hear them in a cabinet next to the dishwasher. One day, I heard a mouse pull the cabinet door open and watched the mouse jump into a gap between the side wall and the top of the cabinet. I figured that's how they were getting into the cabinet and intended to cover it with duct tape after I caught them all. I put out glue traps. I killed them quickly when I caught them, no worries, and got 14 mice in 2 weeks. Problem solved. The next year, I heard a mouse in the same cabinet and realized I had forgotten to cover the gap. I grabbed the tape, opened the door, and there was no gap. No work was done on the cabinet at the time. It just looked like a normal cabinet. I know I watched a mouse jump through a 2-inch gap in that cabinet, but it looks like it never existed. It wasn't a sleep thing. Tapping the gap was on my to-do list and was the first thing I thought of when the mice came back. So weird. Case file number 3340, written by Papercut 2008 UK, repeated in stone. This has to be the strangest thing to ever happen to me. I discovered my own grave a few months ago, and it's played on my mind because I have a lot of health problems too. Last year, my dad passed away. We visit the graveyard quite often and go to various family members' graves. It's a Muslim graveyard, so they usually have the father's name and other details on gravestones. Near my uncle's grave, the one just in front of it, has my name on it. My name is spelled a little differently to the common spelling, and it was exactly like mine on the gravestone, first and last names. It's got the same birth date as me. To add to the strangeness, my dad, who also has an uncommon spelling to his name, was from a small village in Kashmir. On the grave, it has the name of the person's father and my dad's name with the uncommon spelling. On the gravestone is stated that the father is from a village. Guess where the person's father was from? Yep, the same village. It's really weird to me. I know people from that village and contacted them to see if anyone heard of this person other than my dad. No one seems to have heard of him. Follow-up. That first part was a couple of years ago when I found my grave. The whole situation still has me thinking about all the ways this came about. The coincidences that it was right there. Remember, it had the exact same small village my dad came from. Now, I've had the chance to go back there and visit, but it wasn't easy finding anything out since our old village has been destroyed because of an expansion of a huge dam, and it's all underwater and everyone that used to live there has moved on. Well, at least one would hope. The final update. I managed to find one person that lived there, and they actually knew the person with my father's name. He was a younger person, so didn't have all the details. I really wanted to find someone older who lived there a long time ago, and would have had a lot more information, but it sort of made the whole thing slightly stranger. The father of the person who died lived in the village, but had passed away about 10 years ago. He apparently lived really close to where we used to live. The part that made it even stranger is that my father had the exact same name as my dad's father. So this person's whose grave I found had the same name as me, his dad had the same name, same spellings, same village, but the grandfather also had the same name as my grandfather. I wish I could have gone further in finding out how deep this goes, but didn't have enough time to track people down. Most of the people that live there are either scattered or passed away, but it's like my whole family lineage was copy-pasted. So we have very common glitches can be put into different boxes that are pretty commonplace. You have your space-time portals, quantum immortality, the black dot, which we haven't witnessed in quite a while, and DOP reappearances, that kind of thing, vanishings. Those all fit in the boxes. And you get more supernatural, aliens and ghosts and spirits, and I think they kind of blend together. But regardless, there are pretty strong set types of glitches in paranormal stories. But then you get things like this, which are just so unique and completely inexplicable. I have no theories on how this could happen. Is it really just random chance? I mean, I guess it's theoretically possible, but what are the odds that a gravestone would have the markings of your entire family lineage, but it's not your family, and obviously not you? I don't know. That's wild. I mean, you could even say it's a prank, but that's one hell of a prank, and no, there's no way it's a prank, right? Someone carving a stone, fitting it in a graveyard, just so you might happen to come across it? There's no way. So, a glitch probably, but I don't have any clue how or why. Yeah, wild. Case file number 3341, written by Huntress0161. A Huff and a Whisper. When I was about 15, maybe 16, I don't remember how old exactly, but my parents had just told my sister and I to get ready for bed. Yes, I had a bedtime curfew until I graduated high school. My little sister wanted to sleep in the same room with me that night. She is 7 years younger than I am, mind you. She was spoiled. So after getting ready, we climbed into my bed, and our parents told us goodnight. We laid there and talked for a bit, then my sister fell asleep. I laid there looking at the glowing sticker stars on my ceiling and slowly drifted off to sleep. A little bit after my parents went to climb into bed, as they told me, I started to scream bloody murder. Now, before I go into more detail, my room was at the end of the hall on the second floor. My parents' room was downstairs and at the end of that hall. I have never been able to actually scream out of terror or fear in my life, not even pretend to scream. I was one of those people who just jumped or froze when something scared me. With that said, what had made me scream bloody murder, and for my mommy, was, not shortly after I had fallen asleep, I heard a loud, almost breath-like huff in my ear. And then, all these noises started. I heard what sounded like a bunch of people talking, and what sounded like static buzzing in my ear. This continued for a few seconds, as I screamed for my mommy and put my fingers in my ears to block the sound out. My mommy, told me that night after the event that when I started screaming, they actually thought someone had been in the house waiting for us to go to bed and had gone to my room first, and they were killing or hurting me because of the terror in my screams. My mother sent my father up there, and he walked into my room, me still on my side crying and now softly screaming for my mom, with my fingers still lodged into my ears. He grabbed me and asked me if I was okay. I just remember telling him what I had heard, and him telling me it was just a dream and to go back to sleep. I sat up in my bed just sobbing because I had never been so afraid to that magnitude before. But my mother, being the amazing woman she is, came upstairs. She prayed with me, made me feel better, and I was finally able to go back to sleep. But not before cuddling right next to my little sister, who literally slept through all of it. Case file number 3342, written by Austin Will. Fear, Faith, or Something Stranger. When I was young, I had 3 warts on the inner side of my leg at the knee. Over a period of about 4 to 5 years, they began to spread horribly. They spread to my other leg, and I had literally hundreds of these painful warts all over my inner legs. They continued to spread and would sometimes rip and bleed. My mother finally took me to the doctor, and they examined me and said they needed to be burned off. They told us to come back the next morning to have them removed. I was young and terrified of the pain this was going to be. After somehow falling asleep that night, I woke up in the morning and looked at my legs. Every single wart was gone, without a trace. I called my mom into my room and yelled, "My warts are gone!" My mother didn't believe me and told me to get up and get ready to go to the doctor's office. I finally made her come and look, and she couldn't believe it. She was rubbing her hands up and down my legs, saying, "Oh my God," over and over. She called the doctor's office and told them all the warts are gone. They didn't believe it either, So we went down to their office and showed them. Everyone was in disbelief. Pretty amazing that so many warts that had been around for so many years could vanish without a trace. I used to call it my own little miracle, but part of me wonders if it wasn't the fear that somehow caused my body to attack the warts. Mind over matter, crazy stuff. I still have to ask my mom about that day every once in a while to make sure I remember it correctly, but I do. So again, back to unique glitches. This is one where, we have objects resetting in time. Can a person's feet or legs reset in time? And that would spontaneously heal them, but then they'd be younger legs. They'd be smaller and tiny, like when you were younger. You say it was over 4 or 5 years, so if they reset to before they got warts, they'd be that much younger. There's no way, so it's not a time reset either. Like some objects can be broken and reset in time, okay. Just another unique glitch that I have no idea. And it's not quantum immortality because everyone remembered you having those warts. So even if you move to a different universe, it doesn't explain how they spontaneously healed. Because they would have had to, because the doctors and your mom and everyone just like, whoa, shocked Pikachu faces going all around, and yeah. Indeed, miracle. Case file number 3343, written by Jess Darlin. The 7th grade Séance. It was the end of 7th grade, the last few days before summer. Our teachers told us we could bring board games or whatever to play in class quietly. My grandma had bought me an angel board when I had begged her for a Ouija board. She said she'd rather me talk to angels than demons. I brought it to school, and all my friends thought it was lame, but it only took one person to say, cool, and we played with it. We mostly asked questions about ourselves. Will I ever get married? How many kids will I have? Who am I going to marry? And I have no clue if my friends were moving it, but we got answers. In science class, we whipped it out, and someone got serious and asked the angels if there was anyone they would like to contact. It pointed to yes. We asked who. We all read it in a whisper. C-U-P-I-D. Cupid. This kid in my class, named Arthur, whipped around and pushed through his group to get to us. I miss you, Cupid, the board spelled. He looked at all of us, white as a sheet, and asked what we were doing. The board went crazy, saying things like, I'm so sorry. I love you. And then we took our hands off of it to make it stop. Thankfully it did. But Arthur started crying. He told us that his sister called him Cupid as a nickname. She had died in a car accident, a drunk driver. They were really close, and he missed her so much. He was really upset with us because he thought we were playing a trick on him. He started asking us how we knew his nickname because only his sister knew it. Our teacher, with all the commotion, came over and asked what was going on. Arthur was crying so hard, so she escorted him to the back room, and he told her what happened. She came out and said that we were horrible for playing a trick on him, and explained that the board wouldn't work without us knowing things about other people, and that we were moving the pointer. Arthur went home early that day, and we didn't see him the rest of the week. We never found out what happened to him, or if it was really true, or if he was the biggest troll of my life. I got rid of the board, goodwilled it with the stack of clothes. Never told my grandma about that, or what happened to the board. Case file number 3344, written by Mr. Oseto, Our Shadow in the Snow. My sister and I have a friend that comes to us when something major in our lives happens. Even writing this, I'm getting the chills. Here are 2 of the best examples that happen when she or he has come to us. I am going to call it a him just for ease of typing, but it really doesn't have a sex, more just of a being, but it definitely is real. In high school, my sister was at her boyfriend's house, and while she was driving home, hit a patch of ice and started spinning and headed to a patch of woods in a field. In mid-spin, he showed up and said she was going to be just fine and hang on. My sister ended up totaling the car, hitting 3 large trees. There were branches coming in all the windows except the driver's side. Even the windshield had large branches protruding through it that went through the headrest of the passenger seat. The only injury she had was cuts on her hands climbing out of the car from all the broken glass. The friend Also shows up and has accurately predicted all of the pregnancies in my family, 7 total. He even came to me one night and told me to stay home from work the next day because my wife was going to need me. I didn't listen, and that same day, my wife miscarried with her 2nd pregnancy. That night, the friend came back and told me not to worry. We're going to be pregnant again very shortly. After a couple of months of not trying, my wife's best friend found out she was pregnant and put my wife into a funk. That night he came back and told me to go buy tests, and we were having a boy. I listened this time and went out before my wife got up and bought one. I made her take it, and it was positive. 9 months later, my son was born. I could go on and on. Okay, so guardian angel, another glitch type, but this one is much more pronounced or actively participating in your protection. Most guardian angel events, they're very in the distance. You don't see the guardian at all. They're just hanging back. I mean, I figure that'd be a rule, right? That you can't directly interact with the people you're protecting. But I guess it's not. Or maybe this guardian angel was later punished in some way, or I don't know what the rules are, but it seems like keeping a distance is a requirement, but hey, maybe not, and that's interesting. You know, if your guardian is more active and you consider them a friend if they keep helping you, makes sense. And this one's just so active in your life, even telling you when you're gonna have a baby multiple times in your family. That's, it's your friendly neighborhood guardian angel. Case file number 3345, written by Elephant Jones of 4 Little Paws. 2.5 weeks ago, my dog passed away unexpectedly. I have admittedly taken it really hard. About a week ago, I was alone in my house for the first time since his passing. I'm married, and we have 4 children. Plus I work a lot, so it is rare I am home alone. For whatever reason, I decided to go lay down in bed for a few minutes. I walked up the stairs and closed my door. My dog's bed used to be literally right outside my bedroom door, as it is at the end of the hallway. So I've heard him walk up the stairs and go to his bed thousands of times before. As I'm laying there, I hear small steps on the stairs like his. We live in a 50-year-old house and the stairs creak, so I was quite surprised to hear the stairs as I was alone. Then I hear the steps get to the top of the stairs and I hear his claws clacking on the wood floor and stopping in front of my door in his bed. I started calling out, "Hello? Hello? Is someone there?" No response. I jump out of bed and run to the door. Nothing there. I went downstairs and all the doors were still locked. My wife keeps telling me I'm just grieving and the mind is a powerful thing, but I'm sure of what I heard and I'm getting chills even as I write this. Am I losing my mind? Case file number 3346, written by Wo Swasi. Reading with the Nun. When I was in boarding school, about 13 or 14 years old, lights went out at 10 p.m. and we were supposed to sleep. I always was a late owl and liked to read into the night. Flashlights were not allowed, so me and some other girls used to go to the bathrooms where the lights were on all night and do our reading there. Sometimes, the nuns were doing night rounds to make sure everything was alright and nobody was breaking the rules, so we used to close the door but not lock it, hoping that any patrols would not actually open the stall doors. One night I was there with another girl, both quietly reading our books, when we heard someone enter from the hall, light steps, and the typical rustling of the long robe the nuns were wearing. We looked at each other, holding our breath, hoping she would go away without finding us. Instead of the dreaded inspection, we hear a stall door slam shut, more robe rustling, and then the normal sound of someone peeing. My friend and I decided to take a moment when she couldn't follow us to escape. So we nod at each other, jump up, and make a run for our bedroom, only to see that all the other stall doors were wide open, and no one was in there. We raced back to our room and got into my bed, shaking and waiting for the ghost nun to come punish us. She didn't, and eventually we fell asleep, still together in one bed. This led to some stern lectures about the wrongness of girl-on-girl action by the non-ghostly nun that found us in the morning. Nothing was further from our minds, but of course, we couldn't tell the real story. Okay, so a nun that went to the bathroom. That is so bizarre. I mean, again, we know spirits can interact with the world to some extent, appear, disappear, phase out of the matter that can reflect light. The only thing I can think of is this is a prankster ghost that took a glass of water and simulated peeing because this ghost nun knew you were there and wanted to freak you out. Maybe as a punishment for breaking the rules? I guess. That's the stretch, but that's the best I got. And it's something I would do, so, go with that. Case file number 3347, written by It's Reading Me, 123. A motel with a voice. Me and my girlfriend were driving from Tucson, Arizona to California and decided to stop at a motel for the night. It wasn't one of the well-known places, so I don't remember the name. So we get there at around 2 a.m. and get a room. I remember it was really cold and quiet that night. We were both pretty tired and went straight to bed, and both fell asleep rather quickly. After what seemed to me like an hour or two of sleep, I hear a woman's voice coming from outside, yelling in a sad or spooky kind of voice, "Baby! Baby!" I was terrified. My girlfriend calls me baby, and it somehow felt like it was her out there, and she needed help or something. I immediately sat up wide awake, adrenaline pumping, and sweating from fear, and I looked over at my girlfriend, and she was awake, staring at me, frightened crapless as well. She also heard the voice and said to me, "I'm right here, I'm okay." She also thought the voice was hers, and she somehow knew I thought it was too. So we stayed awake listening for a few more minutes, both frozen from fear, until I got the courage to tiptoe to the window and peek outside. I didn't see anybody outside, so went back to bed, and we both stayed awake till morning, unable to fall asleep again. I'm not the type to get scared easily, but something about that voice and the fact we both were thinking the same thing when it happened still haunts us to this day. I seriously cannot think of a time when I was as terrified as that night. Case file number 3348, written by Parker Z.A. Marked in the photograph. My family and I were on holiday in Durban, staying in a hotel. Me and my one brother were staying in one room, while my two youngest brothers, aged 8 and 2, were in another room with my parents. The youngest slept in the same bed as my parents. This is what my mother told me the next day. My 8-year-old brother woke up in the middle of the night and didn't exactly know what time it was. At the foot of his bed, he says, was a small black figure just standing there. Naturally, since it's dark and he can't see crap, he thinks it's the youngest brother, so he tells him to go to bed. It doesn't move. So he goes to our parents, wakes my mother up, and tells her that our brother was awake. It's obvious where this story is going, but my baby bro was still sleeping soundly in between my parents. Apparently, jinns or demons, as they are more commonly known, are attracted to my 8-year-old brother. He used to tell us that he'd hear voices of a man telling him to do evil things. I'm skeptical about that, as I've heard it's common amongst young children, but the other event really freaked me out. Also, when my aunt and uncle went to India, they went to see a woman that supposedly had the sight. Even in Islam, these people are typically not given much attention. But anyway, my aunt gives her a photo of my family, and she moves her hand across it, as if she was scanning it. Says my brother is cursed, and we need to bring him to India to free him. Case file number 3349, written by Obvious19948. The Vanishing of Everything. So, a couple years ago, a set of keys I had at the time fell down the side of my bed, in between the wall and the bed. For some reason, I decided I couldn't be bothered to reach for them and would just get them in the morning when leaving the house. The morning time comes and I reach for my keys, only to find they were no longer there. I pulled the bed out away from the wall to properly look, but nothing. Poof, gone. Since then, my room has been completely emptied multiple times, not to search for them, but to have a redo, new bed, wardrobe, layout, etc. And they were literally nowhere to be found. It still baffles me to this day. Then last year, I was filling in something online and needed my driving license number when my boyfriend called me to tell me he was outside. I left my license on my bed and went down to open the front door. My boyfriend then sat down on my bed and sat on my license, but when he stood up to allow me to get it, it was gone. This one really freaked me out because I watched him sit on it. The room has also been emptied and switched around again since then, and the license has not been seen since he sat on it. It wasn't on his butt either or anything like that. The most recent item that has disappeared was a little tube of antibiotic cream that I'd been using for my scars after surgery. I had just applied some before setting the tube down in the hallway on top of the shoe rack. I took my shoes and went into the living room to put them on so we could take a present to my nan for her birthday. We then left the house with the cream still on top of the shoe rack, yet when we returned home it was gone. My mom, like all mothers, has a habit of putting things away the second they are out of place, so I asked where she had moved it and she said she had not seen the cream since I used it. It has been 2 weeks since this incident, and still no sign of the cream. I like to think the cream will reappear, but I won't be holding my breath. Is anyone else able to provide some sort of explanation for what is happening to these items? I've had other things like earrings and other pieces of jewelry disappear, but always put this down to carelessness of my belongings. What can I do to find my missing items? Case file number 3350, written by Permeate 60, Smiling in the Dark. It was the winter of 2006. I was 16. I'm not sure what month it was, but there was a light blanket of snow on the ground, so I think it was around November. I was asleep, as it was a Thursday night, and I had school in the morning. My sisters were visiting Washington, D.C., and my parents were asleep in their room in the basement. At around 3 a.m., I jolted awake in a sudden state of panic. My eyes just opened really fast, and I couldn't move. I also couldn't breathe. It felt like several people were holding me down and choking me. After trying to move for what seemed like an eternity, I was finally able to throw myself off my bed, not being able to breathe the entire time. I jolted out into the hallway from my bedroom and took an immediate right into the bathroom. Without turning the light on, I went straight for the sink. Bending over at the sink, I began to splash cold water on my face. I began to start breathing again at this point. I just stood there, bent over at the sink, panicking. When I regained my composure, I stood up. That's when I saw her, the woman in rags. She looked demonic and vile. All she had on was torn, dirty rags. Her hair was long and black, and she had scars all over her face and burn marks on her neck. She gave me this slow, evil smile. I began to freak out. I quickly turned on the light and just sat in the bathroom with the door locked. I must have been in there at least an hour. I splashed cold water on my face again and exited the bathroom. The way my house is designed, if you go out of the bathroom and face right, you're looking towards the front of the house. At the beginning of the hallway is a closet with a mirror on it, with the kitchen to the right of the closet, and the living room to the left. If you take a left of the bathroom, my room is at the back of the house, at the end of the hallway on the left. I exited out of the bathroom and looked right, facing the mirror. That's when I saw her again. She started walking from my room to another room straight across from mine. When she got halfway, she was right behind me. She stopped and turned to face me. As I'm looking right at her using the mirror, she gives a long, evil smile again. Immediately, she started giving this deadly scream and started running towards me. I ran into the kitchen and turned on the lights. I turned around and she was nowhere to be found. I then turned on every single light that was on this level of the house. I was in the fetal position all night just watching ESPN on the couch, and I didn't go to school that day. To this day, my parents seem to think it was all in my imagination, but I remember everything in great detail. I remember the feeling of being strangled. I remember how cold and sweaty I was. I remember that evil smile and that evil scream. I remember everything. I'll never forget it. Okay, so this starts off as what you think is classic sleep paralysis. It does fit until you wake up and you're still seeing an entity. Can sleep paralysis carry over even after your body has woken up? I mean, your mind is still kind of in that sleep and waking limbo area between both worlds, you could say, and eventually your body catches up and everything's fine, copacetic. But no, in this case, you wake up, you can use your body, but even an hour after you were staying in the bathroom, your mind was still going crazy. So is it still just your mind slightly dreaming? My gut instinct is telling me that Sleep paralysis is real. It's a real phenomenon. But I think that it's either induced or partially induced by entities that are roaming around. Perhaps malevolent, perhaps some are trickster, but by the apparitions you see, much more malevolent, I would say, which is rare for me to even claim anything malevolent, but that's what it appears to be in this case. Okay, so malevolent entities inducing or maybe just being drawn to people who have sleep paralysis because they have no way to defend themselves. Maybe the dream-like state is where the mind is more vulnerable to seeing these things. So they're there and they just want to frighten people. But beyond a prank, way beyond what I would do, obviously. Hopefully, obviously. So yeah, they're drawn to people in sleep paralysis. And they can linger for a long time after. A terrifying thought, but it seems to fit. Now time for the jokes of the day. Took my car to the mechanic because it was making a terrible noise. He removed the Mariah Carey Christmas CD. Now it's fine. I saw this reel on Instagram where it's just a guy crossing into November, and in the distance you hear the Mariah Carey Christmas music rolling in slowly. It's like it's baked into the air, and yeah. But she's not bad. She's pretty good. And Michael Bublé. I like it. What do you call a snowman with a six-pack? Jacked Frost. This one got me good. I'm a woodworker, and I make 7 figures a year. It's starting to look like I won't ever make any real money, unless I learn to carve them faster. Yeah. My wife just completed a 40-week bodybuilding program this morning. It's a baby girl weighing 7 pounds, 6 ounces. I'm now a dad. Christopher Walken wanted to take his wife to a fancy restaurant. He called to see if he needed a reservation. The hostess told him that all walk-ins are welcome. Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. See you next time.